Hey y'all, what's up? My name's Angela, and today I'm going to be doing the anti-tbr tag. Like the anti-haul tags from the beauty community, this is basically a tag talking about all the books that I don't have interest in reading, I don't really want to read, or that I didn't like. Links to the original tag video by Nicole and her books will be in the description. Thanks to her for creating such a fun tag. I think this is really fun. The first question is a popular book everyone loves but you have no interest in reading. Obviously popularity is pretty subjective here, but I think that a book series or author that everyone on BookTube talks a lot about is Cassandra Clare, and I have no interest in reading anything that she's released after the original Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices series. I read the Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices when I was in middle school, so they kind of hold a special place in my heart as like a landmark in my journey as a reader. But I tried to get into, Lady Midnight from the Dark Artifices series last year, and I just couldn't do it. I feel like I've graduated from that world and those characters, and they just don't hold the same appeal to me anymore. Like, I'm good with where their story has ended. So unless she releases something outside of this world, I don't think I'll be reading any Cassandra Clare anytime soon. The second question is a classic book or author that you don't have an interest in reading. I don't read a lot of classics actually, but from my high school English class days, I remember I really did not like reading John Steinbeck. And in particular, I read Of Mice and Men, and I remember just being so dry, and even though it had really important commentary, I did not enjoy reading or analyzing it. It was just a bore. But he's written a lot of different famous works, so if you have like a recommendation that maybe is better than Of Mice and Men from him, let me know in the comments. So I'm going to skip the third question and go to question 3.2, which is a problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading. This one's pretty easy. I'm not going to read anything by J.K. Rowling anytime soon. I think that all her adult fiction books under, Robert Galbraith, are really basic, so no interest. Question 4, an author you have read a couple of books from and had decided that their books are not for you. This is a recent development, but I had decided that Frederick Bachman books are just not for me. I really liked the first book I read from him, which was A Man Called Uwe. It was one of my favorite books. And then recently I read 2 books from him within quite a short time frame, and I just feel like every one of his books are written in the exact same way, and they get really repetitive and kind of boring after a while. It kind of reminds me of like when an artist or like a singer releases like not exactly the same song, but songs with the exact same structure and style over and over again. Like each song is good, but they're just boring and they're just not creative. I will say that his newest release, Anxious People, I think the plot is really like creative and it kind of throws twists in here, but just the way he structures his messages and kind of his character development just is so predictable every time. The fifth question is a genre you have no interest in or a genre you try to get into and couldn't. I have 2 picks for this question. The first is World War II historical fiction. When I was younger, I actually really liked historical fiction, and then as I tried to get into adult historical fiction, I just feel like 80% of the books I come across are all set like pre or during World War II, in the aftermaths of World War II, right in the middle of World War II. Like, it's just such an oversaturation of this genre with just this small period, and I don't know, I'm kind of bored of that type of fiction. That's not to say that there hasn't been really good fiction that have come out of this genre. Like last year I read The Book Thief, and that was so good. But I actually made a recommendation video for historical fiction that aren't like World War II related because of the kind of oversaturation I felt from this genre. So if you're also interested in that type of fiction, I'll have that linked. And the second genre that I don't think I can really get into is sport fiction. So any fiction like about, like during, like tangential to anything about sports, I cannot get into it. And even with like romances, which I'm really flexible about, like you could have practically any type of plot in a romance and I'll like at least be interested in checking it out. I'm just so hesitant to get into like sports romance fiction. Like for example, there's this one really famous one, From Lukov with Love, that everyone I think last year or 2 years ago was talking about on BookTube, and I think it's about figure skating and just the thought of having to follow these characters like when they're at practice, when they're in a game, when they're talking about this competition. It both bores me and repels me at the same time, even though I love a good slow burn. So like I'm really divided on sport fictions. So I haven't read a lot of sports fictions, but if you think you have any recommendations that might like kind of flip my opinion, please let me know. Like I will probably read From Lukov with Love just because, you know, slow burn, gotta get in there with the slow burn, but if you have any other recommendations, please let me know. The next question, a book you have bought but will never read. This question was so easy. I've tried reading this book so many times. I always get like 50 to 100 pages in and I hate it. It's Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. This book was such a disappointment. I was rooting for you. I was rooting for this. It was on my TBR and kind of like I was looking forward to reading this for so long. And it's about Ursula Todd. She gets respawned every time she dies multiple times, but like every time she kind of learns how to live a little longer. This is set in World War II or World War II tangential. So maybe that kind of all adds up to why I didn't really like it. But this in the beginning just talks so much about her family and very little about Ursula and like her thought processes when she kind of gets reborn every time. So while I think the concept was super, super interesting, the actual execution was just really boring. I'm glad I thrifted this book, and I'll probably redonate this book again so that someone else who will actually want to read this can get a chance to read it. The next question, a series you have no interest in reading or a series you started and have DNF'd. A series that I've started and DNF'd is the Game of Thrones series. So I think A Song of Fire and Ice, Ice and Fire. I started that book so many times because, you know, everyone's always like, oh, it's so good. Like the series is good, the books are good. And I get it. It's fine. It's really like kind of drama filled in that like fantastical political kind of way, and I could totally see why people like it, but the way it's written is just so not for me. I didn't like anyone, and it was just really like boring. It just didn't hold my interest. Same goes for the TV show too. I've started the TV show on so many people's recommendation. I can't even tell you how many times, and every single time I get to like, I think the farthest I've gotten is maybe like season 2, the first episode, and then I just quit. And the last question, a new release that you have no interest in reading. I'm not sure when I'm actually going to be posting this, but 2 new releases that were kind of popular at the time I'm filming this is first Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. That's the newest book in her new series that's still in the same, you know, Mortal Instruments universe. No interest in that for obvious reasons. Please see question 1. And the second book is Kristen Hanna's The Four Winds. So Kristen Hanna, I think she writes historical fiction, and she had those 2 books that got really popular, and I'm sure they're great. But this book also in particular is about the Dust Bowl, and just thinking about it makes my brain shut off. I don't know, something about particular points in history just woof, eyes glazed over. I have no interest in reading it. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed getting to know a little bit about the books that I don't really like so much. It's okay if you like these books. Like, I'm really glad that other people have like hyped up these series because, you know, they get their own enjoyment from these books. One thing I'll say is if there are recommendations that you think might change my mind on some of these genres, please let me know, because a lot of the times it's just like when I'm hearing about books from these genres, they're always like the most popular ones, and sometimes those aren't always necessarily the best. They're just the most widely read. If y'all have anything that might change my mind, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click like it. If you want to see more, click subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.